Hello and welcome back to Marvel Puzzle Quest with me, P.I. McLeod, and well, let's get to it. It's 4-star rating time for 2018. You've had a few days to play with them and get to know them a little better if you didn't already. So let's go see what all the buzz is about back in 2018. For 4 stars. By the way, you see that new gold emblem loading screen stuff? I mean, if you didn't do an update, hey John, how's it going, bud? Yeah, the new update on the loading screen is always nice. Get that little gold 10-year emblem welcoming us back to the game. Little gold spinny symbol on the bottom. I don't know, it's kind of cool. Can I just say the loading screen's a little dull from time to time, even though they just updated the characters recently. So anything new they add to it is always really nice to me. Anyhow, versus... where are you at? 2018. There we go. Boop. Vacation? Need one, John? Is that what you're saying? Because I do. I always need one. Constantly. Okay. So let's get into one of these nodes. I guess pins as they should be called, but whatever. 4 stars. Alphabetical. It's kind of weird to me. They put Jubilee and Taskmaster on top. Did they do that for all the nodes? Give me a second. I'm just curious. Nope, Okoye and Jubilee and Taskmaster on this one. How about over here? Same 3. Just like a different order. It's real interesting. Oh well. I don't know why those 3. It's not like... I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is. New color to spruce things up. Yeah, it is nice. No, on vacation. Okay. Well, hey, I hope you had a good vacation, John. Okay, let's start off with talking about the 4 stars. We're going to do it in alphabetical order. We will come back and circle back to J is for Jubilee and T is for Taskmaster as soon as we get to their respective letters. I'm not trying to cut anyone a line. Okay, so first up, we're going to talk about Bishop. And we're going to talk about current day Bishop. I will probably... can't help but mention how he used to be. Do you remember this guy? Were you here in 2018 when Bishop was how Bishop was? Bishop was the game breaker. Bishop broke the meta. Bishop was the guy that said, oh, you're using a 5-star character and made a single match against me? Thanks for helping me generate, like, I don't know, close to 5 blue AP or whatever, and I'm going to stun your team into oblivion. Pretty much what he did. He basically said if him or any of his teammates if his teammates, that's right, took so much damage, Bishop jumps to the front and generates a bunch of blue AP, and it's so much AP that like it didn't take long for him to just start stunning the enemy, of course. Bishop and blues were the Bishop blues. Let's just call it what it is. Was everywhere. And thankfully, they eventually nerfed him, but they nerfed him too hard. They nerfed him into the ground. He's very, very not good right now. He has his uses, and I definitely get uses out of him for specific purposes, but now he's just that. He's a specific tool set for a specific thing. He's just a shadow of what he once was. Yes, now he's a broken Bishop. Right, John. So let's forget about what he used to do. Let's talk about him now. What does he do now? Well, frankly, he helps make protect tiles, and he can generate blue tiles on the screen. He's also good at taking enemy tiles and converting them for your own purposes. He can be a moderate tank, but not the best one. He doesn't have really any defensive capabilities outside of protects he makes. Overclock does just this. It puts him in front with a countdown tile. It is a fortified one, thank you. And it's only 3 turns, unfortunately, but it only costs 6 red. And when it's out there, when anyone's going to take damage, Bishop just jumps to the front and takes it for the team. When it expires, he does up to 225% of the damage he took while that countdown is on the board. So it's a big payback tile. It's pretty cool, honestly. The only thing that's weird about it is that he makes protect tiles, which is hence mitigating the damage that he's going to give back to the enemy. So it kind of counteracts itself, but still, it's a lot of damage. It's forgivable for 6 red. It's a good thing. It's not a bad power. This goes hand in hand with his blue, General Reserves. With let's see, at the start of the turn, if bishop's in front, which that red guarantees he's in front, doesn't it? You get 1 blue AP, and you create a big old projectile. It's on green, so it's on a color he doesn't use. If he has 8 or more blue, this becomes energy conversion, which for 8 blue, he does some damage and stuns the target for 2 turns. Now, frankly, this is one of the worst blue stuns out there currently. It's not a good blue stun. It's basically your poor man's blue stun, and there's better uses for your blue. You only use this on him if you really need to. I mean, obviously Polaris and many other people have better blue stuns. Right. Isn't that weird, John? The protects minimize the damage he does? It's kind of weird. But anyways, it'd be nice if they just said, like, with, if it could calculate the damage that would have happened beyond the protects, the full damage potential, but still protected him. But whatever, we're getting off topic. If he gets less than 8 blue AP, it goes back to being general reserves. So obviously spend the blue as someone else, and then, let general reserves kick back in. Finally, for the future, this is a little fun ability in my opinion. I feel like this is not abused enough, and you might have seen me use this on some of the puzzle gauntlets. As an active ability, for 10 yellow, he converts a yellow enemy special tile to a big old friendly protect tile. It's actually pretty good in that respect, but it's only 1 converted tile, and it's only 1 protect. It's pretty pricey for 10 yellow, to be quite honest. However, as a passive, if there's 6 or more friendly projectiles on the board, and oh boy, there are plenty of ways to make projectiles, he just has a couple of them. Plenty of other characters make projectiles, and I'm sure you could think of a few. At the start of your turn, you convert 2 of the friendly projectiles and 5 basic tiles to blue basic tiles. That's 7 blue tiles you just made on the board as a passive at the start of your turn. You're bound to get a cascade. You're bound to make a free blue match. You're bound to get something out of this. And to be quite honest, there's so many ways you can convert that blue into another stun or into, I don't know, more protects. Something. There is definitely loops you can make out there with this ability. You just have to, think about it a little bit. It's not too hard. Polaris is really good at taking 1 projectile and making it multiple, don't forget. Anyways, yeah, at the end of the day, he's, unfortunately for 2018, I would consider him like a high-low tier, okay? He's not the worst of the worst, but he's definitely not middle of the pack either. He's not doing damage without, like, spending too much blue for what it's worth, or getting clocked in the face a bunch with no extra protection really to speak of, or spending way too much yellow to be effective for that active power. It's just, there's a fun little combo here, but you have to do some setup and you have to dig for it. You have to build a team around it. So unfortunately, I stick him at a high-low tier level. Not to be confused with a low-high tier. Anyways. Sorry, Bishop. Moving on. Black Panther. Black Panther's definitely got more potential when it comes to damage, and honestly, a little more potential when it comes to protects. He'd actually probably work pretty good with Bishop, but that's not why we're here either. Oh boy, Black Panther introduced us to a new passive in the game when he came into play, and it was, let me just skip to it, the Kinetic Shield. For 8 blue, you created 4 fortified projectiles. And they're pretty decent. But that passive, when you match or destroy a projectile, you deal damage for each projectile on the board. That's pretty cool. Now this is how he is nowadays, I want to remind you. Once upon a time, this used to be you just had to match a projectile. I want to say a change came along the way at some point, making it so that you could match or destroy. I don't remember exactly when that change happened. Sorry, I can't remember every little detail. But this is pretty cool all the same. So you can have your extra projectiles actually turn into damage output. And there's no reason you can't use that to suit your own needs. The yellow over here is pretty cheap too. For 7 yellow, yeah, this definitely got a buff at some point. This used to be a little more expensive. Get 2-turn fortified repeater, generating some strikes, protects, and attacks that are pretty strong. If another ally's in the fight, you fortify them. If 2 allies are in the fight, the tiles are stronger. So you can get. So let me just reiterate this to you. He's making protect tiles on his own. They can be pretty strong if your allies are around, and they're fortified. Don't forget that if you match or destroy a fortification, it counts the same as if you match or destroyed the actual tile. Very few exceptions to that rule. So he could trigger his own blue pretty easily with this. Not to mention more fortifications to play with for other characters too. You know, like Shuri, you know, just saying. Finally, by Tooth and Claw is probably his least amazing ability, but at level 5, here you go. For 10 red, you deal a decent amount of damage, especially for a 4-star character, and you increase the strength of fortified friendly attack strike projectiles, or just standard ones by a lesser amount. Yeah, this definitely got buffed at some point. It used to not be this damaging, used to not buff this much, used to not have that little extra buffs the non-fortified tiles. So, yeah, he got a buff. I would say he's a good mid tier at this point, and basically because this right here, there's plenty of characters out there that help you make projectiles and helps you make them passively. In other words, he has passive damage outputs with these projectiles, and it's very easy to just put out more projectiles with so many different options. He makes them with his blue, he can make them with his yellow, and with that they can get stronger because of his red. His package helps each other on each level, and not one of them is totally reliant on the other. So I put him in a nice mid tier. He definitely does good damage for what it's worth, and his ability is usable with many other characters that can mix and match with him. Black Panther from there. We're just moving on over to Black Widow. You don't have to tell me, John. I know where your loyalties lie on this one. Black Widow is definitely low tier. I found uses for her, but hey, I mean, I'm the guy who plays Puzzle Gauntlet every time relentlessly, right? I always find a use for somebody. Well, maybe not always. But anyways, Black Widow. Polaris Bishop Panther would use and abuse protect stuns and blues. Yes, it would, John. It is a sort of thing that is really, really fun to think of when you brainstorm like that. And yes, you follow that with a nice Black Widow. Well, let me tell you why this Black Widow is actually, in my opinion, better than the 5-star Black Widow. Where do I start with this? Let's start with the really bad ability of the 3, just to get it out of the way. Defilade? Defilade. I don't know how to pronounce this word. I'll be 100% honest. I can read a lot of the English language, but that's a weird word to me. Let's see. Let's put up the 5. There we go. Gets 4 purple invisibility tiles. So in other words, she's invisible with multiple different tiles protecting her. We've only seen this on a couple other characters up to this point. So you, at first glance, you're like, oh, cool, multi-invisibles. That's not bad, right? But then it turns into this 10 purple thing. She destroys her invisibility tiles and destroys 4 enemy special tiles, dealing damage and gaining the AP for them. So you get a little bit of purple back. Meh. You know, I shouldn't say that. You get the AP for those color special tiles. So obviously you're destroying a yellow protect, you get a yellow AP for it. But anyways, you also get the AP from the invisibility tiles. It's not the best use of your purple though, let's be fair. Isn't it better to stay invisible more often than not? Usually. It would have to be a really offensive enemy tile to require bringing yourself out of invisibility just to remove those things. Anyways, if there's no invisibility tiles out there, it goes back to being defilade from enfilade. I'm calling it that because that's what it is now. Defilade. Nice, John. I'll take that. I'll take that. Did you just Google it? I'm going to guess you Googled it. Oh boy. Okay, moving on to Brush Past. This is one of the reasons I actually kind of like her. It's a little pricey at 10 yellow, but you give an ally some health boost, which, meh, that's not what we're here for. You get a 4-turn yellow countdown tile. While that's out there, all ally powers cost 3 AP less. That's fun. Do you know what you could do with that? You can make a lot of powers. I don't know, 3 AP cheaper. Do you know if Shuri's her partner, that stacks? So you put out some fortified tiles. you get brush pass rolling down to 7 because of Shuri's passive, right? Now brush pass casts at 7. Guess what? Everything now brush pass costs 4, and everything else is probably around 4 or 3 as well. So many cheap ways to do this, and all you have to do to keep it up is fire brush past again before its countdown tile goes away. If that countdown tile is about to expire, like on 1 turn left, fire it again at that 4 cost. All of a sudden, you're keeping things super cheap forever. I don't know. That's just how I like to abuse her. And another reason is because of Lights Out. For 8 black, you stun the target for 3 turns, which is not the best stun in the world, and I know it, but it is black. It's an odd color for stuns, right? You deal some damage as well. But the passive, if you look into that, at the start of the turn, if an enemy is stunned, you destroy 3 enemy AP in a random color. So that in turn is pretty fun too, especially since if you think about it, you could have, Shuri has a stun on her green, remember? And Black Widow has a stun on her black, and so many other characters have a stun on their blue or yellow or whatever, right? So if all your stuns are cheaper, you're going to keep whittling away enemy AP and keep it rolling. It's just how I like to use her if I have to use her. Do I purposely use her often? No. There's a lot of other ways to play this game that are much better, much more efficient. But if you're going to play 4-star Black Widow, I'm just kind of giving you my little secrets of how I like to use her. Still, she's low tier. Sorry. It's just she has a lot of setup required. Let's just call it what it is. 10 yellow required to get that brush passed off if we're not using someone else to help her. That stun does cost 8. It is a 3-turn stun. It's probably one of her top shining spots. And then the invisibility that you can't really do nothing with without you purposely destroying your own invisibility tiles. It's not like she's horrible. It's just she's better than Puck. How about that? John, Saving Private Ryan said a bunch. Okay, fine. She's not too bad. Oh, boy. Okay. Dazzler. I want to rate her higher. I think the problem with Dazzler, and I'm saying this before I even explain her, is that she came out too late in the game. Obviously, for newer players, you probably have a better chance at this than I do. But let me just explain what I'm talking about before I give you my overall rating and reaction. Survivor is the whole entire point and purpose behind Dazzler. You can't convince me otherwise. Her red and green are okay and fun, whatever, but it's this black. If she would take 5% or more damage, aka she needs to tank, for every 2 friendly strike, protect, or attack tiles, up to 8, on the board, remove 2 enemy strike, protect, attack, or countdown tiles and stun the target for 1 turn. Then empower 4 random friendly tiles by 20%. What does this mean? If she teams up with Rocket, but she has to tank over Rocket, okay? So Rocket gives you 7 strike tiles to start. And so if she make her tank, make sure she's in front at the start. The first hit she takes, as long as she's taking 5% or more damage, which most 5-stars would do to her, right? All of a sudden, she's removing enemy tiles, stunning them for multiple turns. For every 2 friendly strike, protect, attack tiles on the board, which you have 7, right? So that's 3 total, right? Because, 2 goes into 7 3 times. Anyways, remove 2 of these and stun the target for 1 turn. So that's 3 turns of stun. And then you get to empower 4 of your friendly tiles. You're getting free passive stuns just for Dazzler tanking. That's the end story. It only works if you have a good partner like Rocket to start off and give you some tiles, though. And it only works if Dazzler is your tank. So this is why she's not that great. A lot of ifs, thens, and buts. But if you can get her to work, it's passive stunning because the enemy hit her too hard. It's really quite good. It's worked for me in the past, and it's one of the reasons why one of the supports that people use on her is her pocket radio, which boosts her black, red, and green damage, hence she tanks more often. Anyways, let's keep going. Red, the dance floor queen for 7 red, creates some strike tiles, a good amount, 5 of them, right? And pretty decent strength. For every additional 3 red AP she has when she casts it, she gets to create 3 more strike tiles out there. She can actually put a lot of strike tiles out, but it does cost some red. I'm sorry, what was that, John? I want her to be good and use her more, but it's tough. It is tough. And then finally, the Sounds of Light and Fury for 7 green. Once again, it's not that expensive. You deal damage to the enemy team, plus extra damage for every friendly special tile, up to 10 max. They're not bad abilities, it's just you have, in this day and age in the game, passives are where it's at, and that red and green need AP to fire. And they're not expensive, but this passive relies on special tiles. And if she doesn't have a partner that creates them readily, then she's kind of pointless. And that's unfortunately the horrible truth of it all. This is the whole reason to use her. This is the kit and caboodle. So, sorry Dazzler, you are a low tier. But like I said, don't let that discourage you. If you want to use her, just make sure she's tanking in front of your other teammates and put her with people that ensure that you have special tiles out there on the board. You know, like Rocket. Anyways, move away from low tiers over here. Domino. I don't know, hope I don't have to introduce her. Through all the puzzle gauntlets we've been through on this channel, she has definitely shown up a couple of times, especially due to her black tile generation. John, I'm trying to figure out what you mean by wah wah wah. Is it like the trombone sound? Is that what you were going for? Like the Price is Right? Yeah, I'm going to take it as that. Okay, so Domino, who used to not have the extra X-Force name in the title, I'm still wondering if they're going to get a real Domino in the game or something like that at some point because of this. Maybe a movie version of Domino. I feel like it's coming. Anyways, Domino is one of the few characters in the game that alters the drop rate of tiles. Looking at you, Cersei. Anyways, as a passive, her black, which is, again, one of the only reasons to use her, the trombone for Dazzler. Thank you, John. I was trying to interpret that. Okay, so at 5 in black, you every new tile dropped from the top of the board during your turn has a 100% higher chance of being a black tile. Period. Now, this is only during your turn. This isn't the best black generator in the world, but it is pretty decent at it. And it's so good that, as you might have noticed in the last puzzle that we used, it said no black tiles will fall. And I put Domino in anyways. And to be quite fair, that was by accident. I kind of forgot. If you know anything about math, you know 100% of 0, meaning no tiles will fall, means still 0. 0 tiles will fall. That's not the case in MPQ, I guess, because black tiles were falling quite normally with Domino out there. So this plus 100% must be an actual additional 100%, like adding on to it, which isn't quite how math works in my opinion, and you know, from what I know, but hey, here we are. I still don't like her as much for creating black tiles as like Cloak and Dagger, because she makes them upon the tile drops, which means you potentially are making them for the enemy to use, not yourself. But hey, it's still an option. It's still something that's useful at the end of the day, especially if you want to make the board more cascade friendly. Yeah, it does improve a 0% chance. It's kind of crazy how that works. I would not expect that to, because, you know, 100% of 0. Anyways, enter the fray for 7 green. You destroy 15 random non-black basic tiles. And if you read that black passive with me, you know that means a lot more black is going to fall. This is a very cascade-friendly machine. It doesn't really do any extra damage outside of the tiles it destroys. It's just you're probably going to gain more AP through the cascade. And finally, knock them down for 9 red. You destroy half of the black tiles on the board, which there should be a good amount by now, you'd think, dealing a good amount of damage for each tile destroyed. Again, more cascades, more damage. This is pretty much what she does, is damage and cascades, but you're really using her for the not just luck deal. That being said, I wouldn't consider her high tier, because she doesn't really do a lot of stuff without partners. She needs the AP to really do any damage, and that black isn't feeding herself. I mean, it helps her green and red, but really at the end of the day, if you're matching black, it's not helping her. It's for your partners. She needs partners to make good use of this stuff. So, once again, much like some of the other characters, she would be considered a mid-tier character. I wouldn't say low, because she actually does have some utility that a lot of characters like having her on the team for. Next, she will design by 0. Yeah, for her next trick. Okay, move on to Emma Frost. It's not hard to believe or remember back in time when Emma Frost used to be a really low tier character. We're talking bottom of the ladder. She was pretty horrible before, and it's not just because of her old costume. I mean, it's not a horrible costume, but come on. Let's put the shades on. Anyways. Yeah, she's a hero support. That's a good point, John. Domino's a hero supporter. Anyways, Emma Frost got a nice buff once upon a time, and it's a good buff. But here, I'll walk you through it, then I'll give you my rating. We're gonna do the purple, then the yellow, then the black. It's just the order of things. Psychic Meddling is 8 purple. You get a 2-turn repeater tile. It's not fortified. That destroys 4 enemy strike, attack, or protects. If none exist, the repeater tile destroys 4 AP in the selected enemy's strongest color instead. So in other words, whatever enemy's in front. So like Iron Man is your front character, no matter what the behind enemies have for their strongest color, you'd be destroying red AP because Iron Man's in front. Anyways. While it's on the board, you disable the selected enemy's abilities. So they can't fire off stuff either. That is the improvement, by the way. It did the other stuff before. This part is the improvement, disabling the enemy's abilities. This tile is destroyed, or if the selected enemy is downed, or if Emma enters diamond form. Okay? Okay. Let's go. By the way, I'm sorry. I misspoke when I said in front. Just she does select an enemy to do it too, and so... You choose the enemy, it does the AP destruction to them. You get the point. My bad for misspeaking. Labor for Learning is 8 yellow. You get a 2-turn yellow repeater, again, not fortified. That places 2 strength, so 2 decent sized strike tiles on the board. And then it improves 3 existing strike tiles by an okay amount. Hey, what's up, Mark? Good to see you. So it's good at like consistently buffing and putting out strikes. That's what that does. I'm keeping my mouth shut on certain things until then. Girl's Best Friend is 7 black, which is cheaper than what it used to be. So if no friendly special tiles exist, you create a friendly 64 strength protect tile, then fortify up to 6 basic or friendly special tiles, and turn into Diamond Skin. Diamond Skin has a passive that says your match damage is increased by 325%, so she becomes a tank. She cannot be stunned. That's a nice improvement over what it used to do. And she takes 50% less damage from matches and abilities, so she really is a tank. But she cannot fire her other abilities when there's no fortified tiles on the board, or I should say fortified friendly special tiles on the board. It goes back to Girl's Best Friend. Or you could just use 7 black and revert on your own. Despite all this positives I was just throwing at you, she's hugely low tier. Hugely low tier. But what was I saying earlier? A non-fortified repeater? A non-fortified repeater? These repeaters don't do anything when you cast them. They do things after they count down to 0. And so in other words, you could put it out there and it could never get a chance to shine because the enemy could, match it, destroy it, whatever it, right? And that way you just wasted your 8 purple or your 8 yellow. And this Girl's Best Friend isn't doing anything without fortified specials on the board. And if you cast it with none on there, you get one fortified tile. Yeah, sorry, Emma. You're definitely better than what you used to be, that's for sure. But you're still bad. Sorry, Emma. You are a low tier. Ghost. Oh, boy. Diamond Karnak. Yeah, but Karnak makes crits and much better match damage. and powers that are actually useful immediately. I could go on. Ghost. Ghost is one of the original characters that came right out the gate saying, "Yo, I just hit harder." That's all. She just right off the bat. Even America Chavez has to build up like AP to hit harder. But if I look at Ghosts, is it Power Cycle? Yeah, there it is. Right off the rip. Passive ability. Her base match damage is increased by 300%. There's nothing needs to be done. She just has that. When she does fire a power, though, if you do, I didn't say you have to. Remember, keep that in mind if you play Ghost. You don't have to fire her powers. You never have to fire anyone's powers. Just let it mellow if you need to. Anyways, if you fire one 3-turn countdown tile that grants you 6 red AP. It's not a bad way to gain red. Maybe you have someone else who wants to really use that red. Anyways, while that countdown tile is on the board, it becomes Stasis Protocol. Her base smash damage is increased by 100%, which is not 300%. And finally, when the power cycle countdown is gone, it becomes this power becomes power cycle. You could basically get rid of your own countdown to turn it back, but you have to have a plan for that, right? Like, I don't know, like maybe you could gain the red AP and then use Rogue's red to punch away your own tile. Just giving you suggestions. Anyways, Unfazed is her own red, which if you wanted to use it for this, fine, by all means, go ahead. But I think there's better ways to use red. For 10 red, you deal some damage, and if she's invisible, she instead deals a ton more damage, ignoring enemy protects. It's really good if you're invisible, but again, you've probably heard by now what I think of qualifiers. If there's a qualifier needed to make an ability good, it probably is not good. You know, there's other things you could be doing with that AP that don't require such qualifiers. Yeah, Puzzle Gauntlet for a complicated way to get red. True. Yeah, we can always keep that in mind. We need red. Ghosts, Power Cycle. Yeah, we'd have to like cast a power, which means 10 purple or 10 red to generate 6 red. I mean, I guess. Anyway, supply run. 10 purple gives her 4 invisibility tiles. Just like Black Widow. It's kind of weird. They like 4s. Anyways, whenever you match an invisibility tile, you restore some health to Ghost. Nice and simple. I have yet to try this, but I wonder if you match one of Black Widow's invisibility tiles if Ghost gets restored health. Or maybe one of the Duck Loose tiles from Howard. Does Ghost heal? I might have to try experimenting with that just to see at some point. Anyways, but yay, you turn into an invisible person that once power cycle's gone off the board, you're invisibly doing 300% match damage. It's pretty cool. She definitely, it hits hard, and she has fun ways to be invisible and to actually generate red AP. At the end of the day, she is not a bad character. But she is not top tier in this 2018, to say the least. I would definitely say she's a strong mid-tier, because jumping right into any battle with 300% match damage means you already have the upper leg. Just imagine, if you will, if you jumped in with Ghost and then Rocket on your side. Now you have 300% more damage on top of those strike tiles. It's actually a thing. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's definitely there, and it's effective. But I'd still say she's probably just a mid-tier character. I might have to go back and review some of these things, but I'm standing by this for now. I don't know. I might have to rethink some of my ratings here. I'm looking at the rest of the cast. Give me a moment. Before Craven, we have to jump over to Jubilee, don't we? Because J is before K. Hey, Jubes. Yeah, Ghost with Invisible Woman. Yeah. And you did say complicated, yes. Yeah, if you find a character that allows the lower countdown tiles mark, yeah, you could. I mean, 4-star Flapton. Ooh, if you want to match blues for that. That's one way of doing it. Anyways. Jubilee. Jubilee got a remake or buff real recent. Real super recent in the game. And because of it, it's breathed new life into her. She used to be pretty darn low tier. Now I don't know. I might actually say she's high tier. Let's go into Y. The big Y is right here, heart of the team. So whenever Jubilee makes a match, if she has less health than the target, and there's a lot of characters that have more health than her, let's just be fair. Her matches deal 5,552, and that's at this boosted level, so don't, get crazy, excited with me yet, right? Or 300% bonus damage, whichever is lower. That's good. If there are at least 2 charge tiles on the board, this also applies to her allies. What? Keep that in mind right now with me, okay? This whole passive applies to her allies if there are at least 2 charge tiles on the board. Now, that means her allies have to have lower health than the target, though. So, that's a qualifier. You know how I feel about qualifiers. But that's a lot of bonus damage to give to somebody. Especially when we're talking, 5-star partners. Like maybe Colossus or Shang-Chi has lower health than the target. And then all of a sudden you have a couple charge tiles out there and you just punch them with Colossus or Shang-Chi for 300% more? You thinking what I'm thinking, Pinky? From Heart of the Team, the other ones are pretty good as well, but we'll get into them. Light Show for 10 purple. Yeah, half. Good thinking, Mark. Half Thor. He's always lower than the opponent with the way we designed to use him, right? And he's also feeding you AP. What's not to love? 10 purple. Choose 2 basic tiles. Converts the surrounding 3x3 tiles of those to yellow, green, or purple. This used to do just any color. It used to do a rainbow change, right? And that was very unusable because you couldn't really bank on anything coming out of it. Sometimes something did, but it was very rare. Anyway, so it's a lot better now because you're going to get some colors that Jubilee likes. You deal a good amount of damage and stun 2 random enemies for 2 turns. So hold up. 2 enemies get stunned for 2 turns each, and you're dealing damage, and you're cascading into AP that she uses. This is a solid ability. One of the few abilities for actually the double-digit cost in purple that actually does a whole set of things that's actually good and usable. I can't overstate that. Usually when powers get a little pricey like this, you have to kind of hem and haw about, like, is it worth such a cost? But this is actually a good one. What's that, John? What if anyone uses full Thor for anything other than reducing him to half Thor? No. No, they don't. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but I can't think of anyone who does. Oh, man. Roman Candle for 9 green. You create 4 charge tiles, prioritizing the enemy strike, protect, or attack tiles, which, by the way, that's new. And you deal damage to the enemy team. A pretty good damage, too. And this passive is new for her. At the start of the turn, for each X-Men on the team, create a charge tile up to the number of X-Men on the team. That doesn't mean per turn you're creating that many charge tiles. This means the cap for the amount of charge tiles on the board she will create passively. Meaning, if you got, like, let's say Jubilee and Colossus are the only 2 X-Men on your team, if there's already 2 or more charge tiles out there, she's not making more for you. But if you're down to 1 charge tile or less at the start of the turn, she will bring it right back up to 2. So you're guaranteed with her to always have an amount of charge tiles out there at the start of your turn equal to the amount of X-Men on your team. Which, by the way, you want at least 2 X-Men on the team. She counts as 1. 1 more X-Men will be fine, because then Heart of the Team applies to everyone on your team as long as they're lower health than the enemy. That is why she's high tier. That match damage is ridiculous. You could do a lot of things with that extra match damage, and it is passive, and she just needs the right partners, which there are a ton of X-Men in this game. Go ahead, pick anyone. There's so many ways to get this done. And characters that actually help her make charge tiles too. It's really hard to not use Heart of the Team. I think that's the harder challenge. Use Jubilee without utilizing Heart of the Team. well, then she sucks. No, Heart of the Team is the whole reason to use her, and then Light Show is actually really good and decent, and Roman Candle is pretty darn good too. So, yeah, I'd easily call her a high tier now. She used to be easily low tier, but now you can abuse her. Do you know we've seen 5-star teams out there, Colossus, enter another 5-star, and then Jubilee go in there and just smash faces in? It's ridiculous. There's a lot of damage output. So, anywho. Yeah, I would definitely put Jubilee up high. Okay, now that we're done with J, let's go back down to K over here. K is for Karnak. When Karnak came out in MPQ, he definitely pumped the brakes on everyone's rocket abuse. Everyone was using rocket, left and right. Who wouldn't turn down 7 free strike tiles for more damage at the beginning? Well, enter Craven. Craven punishes anyone who abuses special tiles, and I'd like to think it still does a good job, but it just hasn't grown with time. If he got a buff to where that power actually did more with nowadays numbers, it could be scary again. Anyways, where is that at? It's right over here, this purple. Think like the enemy. At the beginning of the turn, if there are at least 4 enemy strike attack projectiles on the board, he reduces their strength by a decent amount and deals damage. This is just passively. Just passive damage, just because the tiles exist. Yes, the tiles could actually get down to 1 strength. He would do the damage, and then next turn, if they're still there, he'll reduce it down to 1, because you can't reduce less than the 1. The tiles literally can't hit 0. So, anyways, you'll still do the damage. It's quite good. It's easily the best and only reason to really use him. The other abilities he has are a lot more lackluster, but if this ever got buffed, he could be usable again, especially with Moondragon and other characters out there having so much more fun with these special tiles lately. Anyways, Wounded Pride it's okay. 10 black, you get a 1-turn countdown that destroys 3 AP in the enemy and your team strongest colors. So you're losing 3 extra AP for casting this basically when the countdown hits 0. But you deal a good amount of damage for each point of AP lost. So remember, that's 3 on the enemy, 3 on yours. That's 6 times that number in damage when that countdown hits 0. It's pretty good damage. It's just, it sucks that it's for 10 black and it's unfortified countdown. I mean, sure, it's only 1 turn, so it's probably going to go off, but there's no guarantees in MPQ. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you guys over there. Mark with Negasonic for the X-Men reference. Oh, yeah, for Jubilee. And then Anti-Polaris and RNG. Yeah. Yeah, we talk about Craven. Definitely. Well, problem is, he'd have to be able to keep up with them, you know? If Polaris keeps matching, they could probably kill Craven before he kills them. I don't know, just kind of winging it here. I could be off, but I think my money would still be on those, on Polaris and friends. Anyways, finally there's his blue. His blue is sad. It's too expensive for what it does at 10. For 10 blue, he gets a blue trap tile on the board, which remember, traps can be overwritten, destroyed, so many other ways to get rid of traps. The only blessing they have is that they're invisible, so the enemy can't see them, but we all know how the computer cheats. Anyways, when any of those traps are on the board, so in other words, if you have more than 1, you still only get 1 effect out of this, but whatever. He steals 1 AP in a random color each turn. I mean, it's passive theft. I guess that's fun, right? It's only 1 each turn, though. But when that trap tile is matched, you convert 4 basic tiles to his team's strongest color and deal some okay damage. It's the 4 basic tiles converted to his team's strongest that is pretty nice, because that could cost some cascades or feed a friend of yours on the team. It's just, it costs 10 blue to get this effect. Yuck. It's easily his worst power. Black isn't that much better for what it requires. It's all about the purple for him. If it wasn't for certain counters that are existing out there, I'd want to say high tier. I mean, I'm just looking at the rest of the class of 2018 just to get my bearings before I give my I'd say he's probably at least mid-tier. But the problem with all of my thoughts on this is that he requires the enemy to have those tiles out there to even do anything. So I'm even reluctant to say mid. Because if you think about it, are you really going to use Kraven against anyone who isn't Rocket or isn't Polaris or isn't someone putting out massive amounts of tiles? And the answer is probably no. His other abilities suck. So I guess overall I gotta say he's low tier. Because he's only useful against certain people. It's kind of a shame. Oh well. I'm going to move on. Nebula. I mean, Kraven would actually be decent against Nebula once Nebula gets rolling, but that's the problem with Kraven. Anyways, Nebula. Nebula has had a buff since she came out. A pretty decent buff. Made her a little more threatening. Warped enhancements is much cheaper than it used to. It used to be a little more pricey, but now it's only 6 blue. You get a repeater. It's not fortified. And it heals Nebula for a good amount every time it counts down to 0. And creates a good strength strike tile. For what it does, that's a good power and it's cheap, but it's just not fortified. Again, it could be destroyed, overwritten, whatever, before you even get the effect for it. Yuck. Right, John. Good potential, but meh. I'm going to skip to red before I get to green. Grim Efficiency for 8 red says you deal some damage, and then you create some red attack tiles, 2 of them to be exact, for every 3 green AP that her team has. Those attack tiles are pretty cool, and you can imagine how those attack tiles go with her blue strike tiles that she makes with that repeater, right? Okay. Now we're thinking about it. Like, okay, I can see how this goes together, right? Just remember that you had to spend blue AP to get there, spend this red AP to get here. And then there's this green. For 10 green, her most costly ability, she deals damage to the enemy team for each strike, protect, or attack on the board. This doesn't say friendly or enemy. You can count just enemy tiles if you wanted. You don't need friendly tiles for this to work. So since it's only up to 10 though, that's about 30,000 damage for 10 green, and it's to the enemy team. It's actually pretty decent for the cost, but she doesn't make tiles without casting the blue and having the blue actually work multiple times. Doesn't, casting this red and having enough green to make tiles with. Nebula is easily she's stronger than what she was before. I only call her a mid-tier. That strength only happens if she actually have the AP to cast things and actually survive long enough to get there. I gotta stop saying the word actually. I'm just now realizing how many times I'm saying that. Anyway, she's a mid-tier. Prowler can be a lot better, but again, much like Kraven, he suffers from this one ability where he kind of needs the enemy to have tiles, and well, he's got his place. He's really awesome when he's in his element. Enemy tiles exist and they're out there constantly, but that's just it. If they're not, he's not doing what he needs to. Unlike Kraven, though, he can feed that whole shtick. He's actually a little better than Kraven in those regards. What's that? Needs 6 to 8 of the right matches to get stuff done. Right, John. For Nebula. So we'll start with the thing that's probably his shining beacon, and that's his purple. You might be, why do you only have it at 3 then? Well, I'll show you. So at 5, start of each turn, you fortify 2 enemy strike, attack, and protect tiles, which is a head scratcher at first. You're like, why would you want to fortify enemy tiles, right? Anyways, whenever your team matches a fortified enemy strike or attack protect tile, you steal it, and then you improve it by a great amount. I just have it down to 3 because I don't really need to improve it too much. I just need it to not be the enemies. Improving it's cool and all that, but just I don't want them to have it. That's really all I want. You don't steal more, you don't protect more or fortify more. It just gets a bigger number of improvement. So I'll just put it down to 3. I just want them to not have the tile. That's just me though. His blue is actually pretty good for the cost. For 10 blue, you deal meh damage, but you stun the target enemy for 3 turns, and if you have more strike, attack, and protect tiles on the enemy team, which if you're utilizing his purple passive correctly, you should, you also deal damage to all the other enemies. So for 10 blue, it's actually very decent. You get a 3-turn stun and a bunch of damage, a bunch of damage to one character and then more damage to the whole enemy team. It can be pretty good. Quite often you end up having more tiles than the enemy because of his purple. And finally, there's I'll Get My Coat. Remember when I said he can make his own enemy tiles? Well, for 11 black, you get some friendly strike tiles and 2 enemy strike tiles. And then he goes invisible. He basically causes a little trouble because he's making enemy strike tiles. And then he's like, yeah, I'm not here anymore. Poof, gone. So he's invisible for 3 turns, which, by the way, that doesn't mean there's invisible tiles. He literally is invisible for 3 turns, and there's pretty much nothing the enemy can do to bring him out of that, short of an ability that actually states it. Looking at you, Elsa Bloodstone. So this right here is a good way to make some enemy strike tiles. Unfortunately, it is pricey at 11 black. So I give him the upper hand to Craven. If Craven is the high-low tier, maybe that's what I should call them to begin with, Prowler is definitely a mid-tier. Because Prowler, I can say it right, can feed his own purple passive with that black. Is it costly? Yes, it is. But these abilities actually help each other in tandem. Not to mention, if, special side note, if you use his support, the Tinkerer has a special ability for Prowler that states if you match an enemy fortified tile, it becomes refortified when you steal it. So in other words, you unfortify the tile by matching it, you steal it because of On the Prowl, and then you refortify it because the Tinkerer said so. It's a pretty fun little combo there. Yeah, anywho. Yeah, I'd say Prowler is a nice mid-tier because he's useful against enemy tile users, and he can generate his own enemy tiles to keep it rolling. He has invisibility, he has a stun. It's not a bad kit. Is he gonna destroy the enemy? Not necessarily, but he's definitely gonna keep them in check, depending on how they use their tiles. Shuri is definitely high tier. I can't explain that enough, and I might as well use my fully powered Shuri to do the explanation so you can see more of it. Shuri's super good. I don't know how else to say it, but let's start off with Vibranium Virtuoso. Let's go with Vibranium Tech and then Vibranium Virtuoso. I think that's a better way to go about it. The Tech says, as a passive, as long as there are 5 fortified tiles on the board, enemy powers cost 3 AP more, and friendly powers cost 3 AP less. And yes, this is stackable. So in other words, if you had Shuri with 5 fortified tiles and Peggy Carter on your team as well, the enemy powers are going to cost 7 AP more. You could just feel the cringe. But yeah, so get 5 fortified tiles out there, and then all of a sudden, everything you and your teammates do is 3 AP cheaper. A lot easier for you to keep things rolling at this point. Vibranium Virtuoso, this is one of the reasons I want to go right into it. For 8 red, you create 6 friendly special, or you fortify, I should say, 6 friendly special or basic tiles, and then remove a random enemy fortified special tile. So yeah, it's definitely a good ability for the fact that you're creating the fortifications that she needs for her passive, and then the passive for this red says when you match a fortified tile, deal damage. So she makes fortified tiles. She does damage when she matches fortified tiles, or just whenever any of her allies match it too. And she's also reducing the cost of your powers on your team and increasing the cost of the enemies. And we didn't even go into the last ability. She's high tier just for feeding Okoye. This is true, and she does feed Okoye. Just to click into Champion Max here. Scroll down. Yeah, see Okoye shards. This is the reason why I maxed her, because she feeds one of the best 5 stars there is. Anyways, Twin Blasters for 5 at level 5, just because. For 11 green, you deal some good damage, and you destroy 5 random tiles. But if that power destroys a fortified tile, you stun the enemy for 3 turns. So yes, she has a stun, along with AP lowering passives and AP raising for the enemy passive. and just extra damage when you match a fortified tile passive. Do I need to say more? There's obviously a big reason why Shuri users also put in 4-star Black Panther, since he makes fortified special tiles. And he does damage when matching protect tiles. Can you imagine, if you don't think about it already, a fortified protect tile that you match with Shuri and Black Panther on your team? Yes, you're tapping all those passives together. It's awesome damage, and easily why Shuri is a high T character in the class of 2018. There's plenty of reasons to go with it. And yes, she's a good friend of the lizard. But that's not for this year's speech, is it? Let's move on to the limited one of the limited characters of this year, Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham is easily low tier. I can't stress that enough. Who's better, him or Emma Frost? I might say Emma. I might actually say Emma is better than Spider-Ham. But Spider-Ham does have an interesting, unique mechanic or two up his sleeve, so let's get into it. Spider-Ham has an Into the Spider-Verse power, which is kind of like Nick Fury's Avengers Assemble, or or Captain America's calling the Avengers abilities that they have. In this one, he calls in some spider heroes to join the fight. 4 2-turn fortified countdowns that create webs, stun the enemy, grant bursts of health, and deal damage. It's not as good as Nick Fury's Avengers Assemble or Captain America's versions of this, but it is still good. It's just it's 10 yellow, and there's better ways to go about that sort of shtick if you want to do it. But anyways, what's up, Logan Gaming? Have a story campaign this Puzzle Fest? Well, A, welcome to the channel, Logan. B, probably not tonight. Part of my issue right now is I'm just going to finish up these explanations for 2018's 4-star roster. And then it is late where I'm at. I don't know about you, but I've got to work in the morning. But I do appreciate that. I did this before with PvE on stream, so maybe I'll have to go back and revisit that. What's that, John? 1/3 of the All-Star Animal Squad Duck Dog Pig. If there's anything to talk about Spider-Ham for, it's that. A talking pig is this purple ability that is very lackluster, but it has a really interesting, unique wording. For 8 purple, stun all enemy minions for 2 turns. Do you know what that means? That means goons. We're talking sentry fighters. That's probably the best thing it could do. Sentinels, Magia thugs, those guys. That's what it means by enemy minions. Is the people, those unplayable characters that aren't bosses. So we stun them for 2 turns and remove up to 4 enemy countdown strike, attack, and projectiles, removing the countdowns first. It's not good because it only works against certain people. And sure, it can remove enemy tiles, but for 8 purple, there's other things we could do with that 8 purple, can't we? Anyways. When pigs fly is pretty unique too, but again, it's too costly for what it does. For 12 blue, you get a 3-turn fortified blue countdown, and it does, okay damage to a random enemy. That's a bad thing about it. It's a random enemy. You can't choose. But while it's on the board, he's airborne. And then that tile continues to tick down, even if he becomes stunned. So if, I don't know, Archangels out there, or Elsa Bloodstone, or whatever, stun him in the middle of his airborne acrobatics, this countdown tile continues. And then it costs 1 fewer AP for each member of the Sinister Six on the enemy team, which is probably rarely going to happen, because you're not bringing Spider-Ham to that sort of fight. Sorry, just is what it is. There's so many better ways to fight the Sinister Six without Spider-Ham. He's easily low tier, and I stand by, I think Emma Frost is probably a better character than him. I mean, I want to like him more. It just doesn't bring a lot to the table for the high costs. Yeah, John, those sentries are the worst. And even worse than mindless ones, and those are hateable, yes. Spider-Ham or Puck, who is the worst? Ooh, Mark. Puck has that black passive that's really, really nice, but then he has to get hit to trigger it. Wow, you making me choose. I'm going to go Spider-Ham is better because his yellow actually has multiple effects on it. I'm going to go Spider-Ham is better, Puck is worse. I'm agreeing with John on the Puck is worse point. And it's all because Spider-Ham's yellow is actually better. Man, way to put me in a corner on that one. Okay, from Spider-Ham to Spider-Man. From the Infinity War with his big old Tony Stark suit. We got this... well, a web making machine. Let's put it that way. If you are sitting there and you're making your web-based team, he should be probably the second character you think of when it comes to making webs quick. Why? Who's first? Well, Spider-Man 2099, of course. But second place goes to this guy right here. Quick reflexes. Really, really good. Whenever Spider-Man makes a match, so that means this character has to make the match, okay? You create 2 web tiles. Enemy powers also deal 12% less damage to him for each web tile on the board, but when he takes damage from an enemy power, you remove half of all web tiles rounded down. So he's taking less damage from those powers, but then he's removing some of the web tiles. And they're not destroyed, they're not matched, they're removed, so no, they don't trigger things like Silk. Or, you know what I'm saying, right? You don't get all those fun trigger points out of it for those webs. But he's making web tiles just for matching his colors. Or maybe his off colors, depending on who your team's consisted of. Anyways. Beyond that, the other powers they're okay. Thwit Pow is 7 green, it's cheap, but you get 8 random webs thrown out there. You lock enemy ones you hit, and you fortify friendly ones, and the rest of them, the basic ones, are just web tiles. But that's pretty cool. Like, I've had this happen more often than not. When you cast this green, you're probably fortifying something or locking something. It's actually kind of useful. I haven't really ever been disappointed with it because at the end of the day, if you get nothing out of it, you've got 8 web tiles. And you saw what it does for his resistances, so that's not bad. Proportional Punch is probably at 5 for most people. I think I was using him last just to make web tiles for another team, so bear with me. 10 red gets you a pretty decent damage, plus a lot more damage for every blue, green, or red web on the board, and a little less damage for the other webs. So the yellow, purples, and blacks still add damage. They're just not as much as the red, blue, and green webs. It's a great ability, honestly. If you look at it, there's no cap on it. You can't. It's like not max of 10 webs or anything. It's if the whole screen, if you have 64 webs, it's going to do all that damage. It's a good ability. In the end, I would say he's probably a higher tier character because he generates his own webs. His abilities use webs. He can lock enemy tiles down. Sure, it's a random selection, but still the option's there. He's creating the webs that help him with Proportional Punch, passively and actively with that green. Honestly, I think I'd have to give him a high tier rating because he feeds himself. And not to mention, it's easy to put him on spider teams. Well, maybe not Spider-Ham, but, you know, with Miles Morales or I shouldn't say 3-star, that's not fair. But any other spider character that uses webs, like Spider-Gwen, for instance, Spidey 2099, Silk, you get the point. He could do a lot of things with them. And he's definitely welcome in most of these places. So I think I'd rate him high because these 3 abilities work together, and he's a good teammate for everyone he works with. Okay, Spider-Man. Let's move on from there to... Ooh, I almost passed by him. Let's not pass by Taskmaster. Taskmaster is the other limited guy from 2018. Wow. Taskmaster's weird. Am I going to go through all the powers? Probably. But what else did you want me to do when I'm doing a character review? If you don't know, Taskmaster has not just 3 abilities, but, you know, 6 abilities on each of the colors. You just have to choose which ones you want to go in with. If you couldn't tell, I like this build right here. Oldest Trick, Speed Shot, Quack Fu 1-2. And I'll explain why after I go through these powers and what they really mean to him. So, for his red, once you select the power you want, you click the Learn button, and that becomes his power. So I can hit Learn, and now I got a bunch of Fiddle Faddle as his red. You might recognize these powers from, I don't know, other characters, because that's what Taskmaster does. He memorizes other people's abilities, right? And then he can use them. Well, he's got 18 of them. You select 3 of them, and you walk into battle with them. First up in the reds, little off the top. For 6 red, he does 3-star Deadpool shtick, where he cuts off 40% of their current health up to a max. It's not bad. Oldest Trick in the book, you deal some damage. It's basically 4-star Star-Lord's red. You deal some damage and additional damage per friendly countdown tile. Can I be honest? He does it better than Star-Lord. I think he's got a better damage output. It's just, the only difference is he doesn't have Star-Lord's yellow to make it cheaper. Grim Efficiency, which is Nebula's red, right? Deal damage, then create some attack tiles for every 3 green AP. We've just went over that recently. It's okay. I think Nebula does this one better. Star Spangled Avenger, which is Captain America's red. Damage with a shield, and then you chosen tile becomes a red 3-turn countdown that returns 6 red AP. 6. Just 6. Yes, Captain America returns more red AP than Taskmaster. Don't ask me why they made this change for Taskmaster. I don't understand that. Moving Target, which is Winter Soldier's red. 4-turn red countdown tile that deals damage. If you match it away instead, you deal even more damage. I don't know which one's better. I don't know if his or Winter Soldier's is better, but that's probably because I barely use either of these. Sorry. And finally, a bunch of Fiddle Faddle. For 13 red, you deal some damage or more damage if there's no enemy strike, attack, or attack tiles on the board. I personally like to go with the low cost abilities, especially Oldest Trick in the book, because it does more damage with extra countdown tiles out there. And then we're going to get into that right over here. On the blue, his first option is Speed Shot. So when his team makes a match 5 or greater, 4 blue tiles become 2-turn countdowns that deal damage when activated. This is 2-star Hawkeye's passive. So a 2-star power becomes a 4-star power, meaning it does 4-star passive damage. It's a much better version of it because of that damage increase between the rankings. This also, with all those countdown tiles out there, feeds that Oldest Trick in the book. Anyways, Billy Club ain't bad for 9 blue. I mean, this is, what, Daredevil, 3-star Daredevil's blue power. Stun the target for 2 turns, 3-turn blue countdown. That stuns for 2 more turns when that activates and creates a new Billy Club countdown. If you match it away, he catches it and gains 3 blue. That part's worse than what Daredevil does himself, but still, the stun loop is there. You could cast Billy Club on someone and then cast it again on someone else, and you could keep these countdowns looping and keep people stuck in these Billy Club countdown loops. It's kind of fun. But obviously you need the blue AP over and over again to make it work. Nuts from Above is Squirrel Girl's purple ability. Had to think about it for a second there. You deal some damage, then extra damage for each enemy protect, attack, or strike tile on the board, up to 8 tiles. Yes, this is a 4-star version of a 3-star ability, so it is more damage. Still don't see myself ever using it anytime soon. Do as Peggy Says, which 4-star Peggy Carter's blue. It's pretty good ability all around, even on Taskmaster. Stun all the enemies but the target for 3 turns. Get 1 3-turn blue countdown tile for each active ally, and that does damage when those go off. Really good ability. This doesn't change between Peggy and him. Ruthless Precision. This is Kate Bishop's blue ability. She deals some damage, creates a blue countdown tile. When that tile's on the board, enemies cannot gain health. That's honestly pretty good ability, all things considered, because there are a lot of characters out there that regen health or even come back to life. And if they can't gain health, you get it. Twin Pistols is 3-star Widow's red ability, but it's on his blue. You the 2 selected 3x3 block of tiles, dealing damage per tile and ending your turn. Oh, I said Widow. I'm sorry. This is Hood. Hood's yellow ability.
I was thinking of Widow's red pistols. It's Hood's yellow ability. My bad. Anyways, it's still a good ability, except for the ending the turn part. That sucks. No one wants to end your turn early, but for some reason this one does. Finally, moving down to the black, we have the Quack Fu 1-2 for 8. So this is so much better than Howard the Duck's green version of this ability. You might wonder why. It's still a 4-star character, right? Well, for 8 black, you still only destroy the green. You deal damage for each green tile on the board, then destroy them. Okay, I would pump it up to show the damage, but honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What I'm doing this for is it destroys all those green tiles by using your black AP, so there should be a good amount of green tiles out there to destroy, and you're left with potential cascades and match 5s, so Speed Shot would trigger, and hence your oldest trick in the book will now do potential maximum damage. So yes, when I run Taskmaster, I like to Quack Fu them into an oldest trick, and you got good damage output. Anyways, Night Stalker for 8 black, deal some damage to the target, create a green repeater that activates every turn, stealing 1 AP for an enemy Shark's Claw. This is 3-star Blades, black ability. It's honestly a pretty good ability, because it's actively stealing AP every turn, and it's still okay damage for what you're getting. You're getting a repeater that steals. It's not bad. Not bad at all. Still, I like Quack Fu. Anyways, Shadow Step is Electro's black that making some black trap tiles. And if he takes damage, well, the damage is negated, the trap tile's triggered, and you generate AP for the trap tile and deal damage. It's a really good ability. But you need the 10 black to get there, so take that for what it's worth. Skullcracker is 3-star Gamora's ability, where she, I should say he now, deals damage to the enemy team and then stuns 2 random enemies for 2 turns. It's not bad. Not a lot of black stuns out there. Black Widow. Anyways, Moon Silver Blades, 12 black. You deal a lot of damage to a random enemy. I mean, that's a lot of damage though. So I think you could forgive it being random. And then finally, Sniper Rifle. This is 3-star Widows, green ability. You deal you deal damage for each tile destroyed. And by the way, it's a giant crosshair pattern that goes across the majority of the board. I want to say it's like a 7x7 crosshair. 7 rows by 7 columns. Anyways, and so you deal damage for each tile destroyed, and you deal additional damage to all enemies. It's really good and strong, but it is 15 black, so obviously you're probably only going to fire this once per match. That's a long explanation for one character, right? You'd think there's so many combinations in here, and there are, but it really just comes down to how often you want to use your abilities. I mean, he's got some expensive reds in here. You know, we got a 11, a 12, a 13. Some blues in here, a 15, a 12, 11. And then these blacks, 15, 12, 12, 10. They're expensive abilities overall, so how often do you really want to cast your stuff? Me personally, I like to cast more often. Get more stuns, more tiles, more effect out there on the board. That being said, I honestly got to rate him probably... I'm going to say mid-tier because he's flexible. You can go into a fight, fix his abilities for what you're going in for. You know, maybe you have a certain plan with a certain team, and then the next fight, if it's a whole different enemy makeup, you could change his abilities again to suit what you want to do. So, you know, whether you're cascading with another set of partners helps, and then changing your teammates for do a whole other team later, or maybe just fitting a different enemy build, I'd say he's a nice solid mid-tier because he has different options at the ready. I wouldn't say he's high tier because everything he does is pretty much active except for you know, his speed shot, and because of that he's always requiring some sort of AP feed, but that's probably his only downfall. So I'd say he's a solid mid-tier though. Okay, Taskmaster, we're done with you finally. Let's go over to one of the other high tiers easily for this, and that's Valkyrie. Valkyrie is easily high tier. What's up, man? John, a Taskmaster dupe Echo. Spend an hour just picking powers. Yeah. That is pretty funny. If you picked Taskmaster, dupe, and then Echo. Echo's the only other one you get to pick between like a couple different abilities. But yes. Oh boy. That was a good point. Anyways. Valkyrie over here is definitely high tier. When you look at her power set, at first this red is not glowing in any way, shape, or form. Dragonfang Fury for 11 red, you deal 5 separate blows of this amount of damage, continuing even if she downs the target. I mean, that's probably the best part about it, is if she kills someone with 2 of those 5 hits, she'll use the other 3 hits on the next person in line. So that's a really cool feature of this ability. That being said, there's other ways I want to spend 11 red. Let's look at the other 2 that actually make her what she is. Bounty Hunter. This puts out a passive, this passive ability, I should say, puts out a 5-turn black countdown, targeting a random enemy right off the bit. Like turn 1, the game starts and you have that out there. Not a lot of powers in the game do that. Beta Ray Bill's passive protect tiles, Rocket's strike tiles, Valkyrie's bounty hunter tile. There's not a lot of abilities that happen right away. This is one of them. I'm sorry, clear my throat there. So it targets a random enemy. So in other words, you have to click on the tile to know who it's targeting. So if that enemy is downed or takes X amount of damage before it expires, you remove this tile, gain 4 AP in your strongest color, and destroy 4 AP in the enemy's strongest color. That's amazing. It is not hard to do the amount of damage required. Yes, it sucks that that amount of damage goes up when she's boosted, but honestly, there's so many ways to put the damage out there. We just talked about Rocket giving you strikes. We just talked about Ghosts 300% to start. We just talked about, I don't know, 5-star characters having increased match damage. There's ways to get that match damage rolling. Make sure you hit that bounty hunter target as hard as you can and as often to gain 4 free AP in your strongest color and destroy 4 AP in the enemy's strongest color. Yes, you could do this once per turn if you're able to hit that threshold each time. It's an amazing output. And that doesn't mean match damage. You could use your power damage. If that AP helps you get to the threshold to cast, I don't know, Dragonfang Fury or some other power, you could use that power to trigger this power and gain more AP. It's an amazing ability. It's probably not abused enough. Anyways. And then finally her yellow, which is pretty darn good as well. Best defense. Whenever her allies, not herself, but whenever one of her allies takes so much damage, you get 2 yellow strike tiles that are decently strong. As long as an enemy has less than 8 AP in a color, this part is often overlooked. I can't reiterate how often people overlook this part. As long as an enemy has a less than 8 AP in a color, which if you're starting the fight, everyone does, right? Okay. Friendly matches in that color deal 1,469 extra damage. Now remember, that's a boosted number. Just, again, Bounty Hunter needs so much damage to trigger. And at the start of the fight, everyone has less than 8 AP in a color, right? You can totally get the Bounty Hunter off. You could totally generate free AP and hinder the enemy's AP. So easy. It's so easy with this character's build. So, yeah. I don't think I need to say more. I've kind of said it all. Valkyrie is easily a top tier character. AP generation, AP destruction, and strike generation. Plus she feeds half Thor. Yay! Anyways. And finally, the last 4-star of 2018 that we're going to go over here tonight, Wiccan. Wiccan has gotten a mighty buff somewhat recently. He used to be interesting and probably low tier. Now he's a little more interesting. I don't know. Let's talk about it and we'll decide as we go. Mystical Destiny is the whole reason, the kit and caboodle, why you'd want to use Wiccan. At the start of the turn, If you have at least 4 AP in all colors. By the way, before his buff, this used to be 6. Anyways. At least 4 AP in all colors. Wiccan transforms into the Demiurge. Whatever that is. And this power becomes power of the Demiurge. Otherwise, if Wiccan's in front, you gain 2 AP in a color you have less than 4 of. So in other words, if Wiccan is tanking for you, you're getting 2 free AP at the start of the turn. That's pretty cool. And it's only in the colors you have less than 4 of because he's obviously helping to get to his mystical destiny. When he becomes the Demiurge, all of his matches will clear their row or column. So in other words, his, you know how like a match 4 or higher destroys the row or the column? Well, his match 3s do that now. All of his matches will clear their row or column. You get the damage, you generate the AP, and he becomes the target of all enemy attacks. Because he is the target of all enemy attacks, this does not mean he is automatically making all matches, though. That all matches made by Wiccan bit, that doesn't mean he's making all the matches. So if you have Karnak out there, and he's got his extra match damage going, he's going to be making those matches. And then when it is the enemy's turn, Wiccan's going to jump to the front and become the target of all the enemy attacks. So this can turn against you. Wiccan could become the Demiurge and then never really match his tiles if you have someone else doing more match damage in front of him. So if you're playing Wiccan, keep that in mind. You don't want someone to tank over Wiccan. It's not the point of him. Magical Barrier for 9 yellow gets 4 random 5-turn countdown tiles out there that reduce damage from enemy matches and powers. That's really cool right there. By 20% each. When they're matched or destroyed, he restores a whole bunch of health. So yes, that's 4 of those tiles out there. That's basically 80% reduction. We all know that's not how math works. It's like 20%, then 20%, then 20%, then 20%, but you get the point. It's a lot of damage reduction. So if Wiccan is in front, yes, once again, he can tank these hits. This yellow helps him tank it even more, and he gets healing out of it when those tiles are matched or destroyed. It's pretty good altogether. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. And then finally, there's Chain Lightning. There's a lot of fun to be had with this ability when used correctly. Let's read into it. 10 green, you deal pretty decent damage. Destroy a chosen column. Yes, you get to choose the column. If that column contains an enemy special tile, you destroy a random column until one with no enemy special tiles is destroyed. So, keep that in mind. Let's say there's like enemy tiles all over the board. You have an enemy Polaris out there, right? And she's just doing her Polaris-y things. Wiccan does a Chain Lightning. Destroy just a row with 1 enemy tile in it, because you don't need to do overkill. He will automatically destroy another column. A random one, unfortunately, but another column. And that'll do its damage and whatnot. And if there's enemy tiles in that one, it'll destroy another random one, so on and so forth. Unfortunately, it can select the same column twice. So if it gets like column 3, it could randomly select column 3 again. That's probably the worst part about it. But when you think about that, there's only 8 columns in the game. That means it's a 12.5% chance that it's going to select the same one again. You're going to probably get at least 2 columns destroyed with this ability. If there's a lot of enemy tiles up there, probably 3. It's really fun for what it does, and if you have Polaris on your team, that's a lot of destroyed enemy tiles that all of a sudden she's making a ton of extra for you. So, yes, you could have fun with a Wiccan Rocket Polaris combo for tile destruction and generation. But of course, once again, make sure Wiccan is your tank, because if you don't, Mystical Destiny will not kick in, and Magical Barrier is kind of pointless because it only works for him. So, that all being said, I think after reading through his abilities, at first I wanted to call him a mid-tier. I'd say he's like a low-high tier. Reason being is because Mystical Destiny is guaranteeing you're going to generate 2 AP as long as he sticks in front. That's not bad at all. And he's going to keep doing that for every color you have less than 4 of. You get free AP every turn? Excuse me? So, I mean, that's pretty good. And so, unless his teammates are like out tanking him, like Ghost or Juggernaut or Karnak or America Chavez, there's only so many of those characters out there in the game. Most characters don't do that sort of stuff. He can generate you free AP. And then he gets in the front and generates more AP just by making match 3s. So his passive abilities are really nice. His tank becomes even better with this yellow when you get that out there. And you probably will, because let's face it, he's creating a lot of AP. And then finally, if you get Chain Lightning off, well, you're probably doing a lot of fun at that point. I think this is the cherry on top, to be quite honest. But still, it's there. That is 2018's 4-star roster. I am open for discussion and debate on any of these because I could easily be swayed. But at the same time, I don't know. I've played through a lot of matches with all of these characters. I definitely know who I've had fun with and who has been a major letdown. So, I'm sorry, John. What was that? Use against sentries with random special tile drops. Could do 8+ columns. Oh, easily. Oh, yeah. The idea of... Well, okay. To be fair, John, you can't you can't do a green Chain Lightning, right, against the enemy sentry and expect enemy tiles to drop when it's not the sentry's turn. So it should only do up to 8 columns because enemy tiles won't drop unless it's the enemy's turn, in the sentry's case. So, not really going to happen that way. Anyways, still a fun thought, though. Okay, wow. Well, that's it. That's 2018's 4-star lineup. I hope you've learned a couple things with me tonight. I've definitely liked going over this stuff. Tests my knowledge over the years because, shoot, I've been through all these iterations and buffs and nerfs for every one of these characters. So it's a trip down memory lane for me as well. So thanks, John. I really appreciate everyone joining in and your support. Thanks, Logan, for joining once again. It's good to see a first-time chatter in here. And John and Mark, good to see you guys as always. And I'll see you guys really, really soon because 2019 is upon us and we'll have a whole new set of 5 stars and 4 stars to review. Not to mention, my CP is looking like close to 1,000. That's usually a sign there's another store coming up I'm going to spend on, right? Anyways, have a good night, everybody. See you.